Hello everyone, welcome to a new video and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Anna and I am a macrame artist and teacher. In today's video, I'll try to answer a question that I get every now and then in the comments, and that is, can I do an advanced macrame project even though I am a beginner? And just by the way, for all the beginners out there, I've made already an entire playlist of videos just for beginners, linking it up there, all about cords, all about measuring them, cutting them, basic knots, etc. So check that out too. Now, I recently got that question on this piece, and this is probably the most advanced piece that I've ever done myself. So I thought it's really time that I talk about this, and hopefully this will be useful. So if I wanted to be done with it quickly, I would just respond, of course you can do it. You can do anything you want. I'm not going to stop you. But would I recommend it? Probably not. But that wouldn't make for a very interesting video, I think. So let me expand on that answer. So first of all, I want to say that it is really difficult for me to answer those questions because I don't know you. I don't know what your experience is. What do you mean by I am a beginner? Does that mean you've never touched macrame before? Does it mean you've only done smaller pieces or with the basic knots? And even if you've never done macrame, have you done maybe other similar crafts like knitting or I don't know, anything to do with your hands? Are you a patient person? Are you concerned about costs and, buying the cords? Because all of those things are factors that I would look at when considering whether you should or shouldn't try to do an advanced project. Because I think for people that, for example, have some experience, like you have tried some little pieces, or you naturally are maybe more talented to work with your hands and you're a patient person, even a project like that one, an advanced one, may not be all that difficult for you. But if you've literally never done macrame and you haven't really done any other crafts, and you're already kind of hesitating whether you should spend all that money on buying the cord, then you may be quite disappointed at the end, and a hobby that you could have picked up maybe more easily if you chose an easier project is now kind of spoiled for you. And I would really hate for that to happen because I do think that macrame is a wonderful hobby to have. So that would be my general tip number one for you to consider is your experience so far. Now, my own experience, it's actually in one of those videos, I talk about how I started with macrame. My very first, I show in that video as well, my first and then my second macrame piece. The first one being quite an easy one, but the second one, I think some people would already consider that a more advanced piece, a pretty large one as well. And I did just fine. Now, when I see that piece today, I don't like it very much. I can definitely see that I've made mistakes in there and the knots don't look as good as they do today when I make them. But back then, I was really happy with myself and with the work that I've done. So that may be the case for you as well. Like the piece may not turn out looking exactly like it is in my tutorial, but you will still get this satisfaction from doing that project. So that's just some encouragement from my side. And then another tip I would give you is consider whether the piece is more geometric, like for example that one that I got the question on, or whether it's a more boho looking but maybe a large piece, like for example this video linking up there and the picture of that project here. Because I think the boho pieces are easier because, or not necessarily, it's easier to make them look good, I think. because in the geometric pieces, your knots have to be very symmetrical. You have to pay a lot of attention to tension and to all the distances, and it's just, I think a beginner would struggle a lot more with a geometric one versus a more boho looking one. So, and because also the boho ones, I feel like pretty easy to make them large without the like difficulty again of the symmetry and all of those things. So that's my other tip. Rather do a boho advanced or bigger piece than a geometric one. And the third and last thing I would like you to consider is the time commitment needed. Large projects, whether boho or geometric, need a lot of time. I'm talking like both those two pieces that I showed, 10 plus hours, and that was me who's already experienced. I kind of know what I'm doing. I'm not I'm not spending so much time on maybe redoing the knots, etc. So for a large project like that, really count with like 15 hours, and I'm talking like 10 to 15 hours of work. So you will be working on this for multiple days, possibly even weeks. It's also quite frustrating when you have to undo the knots. Maybe you made a mistake somewhere and you only notice later, or it's not looking again as maybe symmetrical as you were hoping for, and so you have to redo it again. That's just something that even I do that in my projects today all the time. Like literally, I'm really not joking. I do it, every other project or something. It just isn't turning out the way I need it to be or something like that, or I don't like it the way it is, and so I go ahead, undo the knots and redo it again. So it's just a part of it that, again, you should be prepared for. It does mean that you're going to spend more time on the piece. That also means that thing will be standing in your living room or bedroom or wherever you're going to be working on it. So make sure that you're kind of mentally prepared for having that space occupied, because again, those they are big pieces, so they do take up a lot of space. And that might be also the one thing that literally just crossed my mind. Because they are bigger pieces, it might be more difficult for you to work on them, because I would not be able to imagine doing either of those pieces without my clothing rack, without the stand that I use. So it also may require you to make some investment or really come up with a good solution that you can use, how you can somehow hold up the dowel or the piece of wood that you're going to be using so that you can be working on that piece. And so with the time commitment, again, ask yourself, am I patient enough for this? And so those would be my 3 tips to consider. Your prior experience, whether you've at least tried to make the macrame knots. If not at all, then I would definitely suggest that you try that. You can literally do that with shoelaces, right? Just take them out, or some other kind of a cord. Sometimes people ask me whether they can practice with yarn. That's something I wouldn't recommend, just because yarn is so thin. I think it can be very difficult to make the knots with that. But something like shoelaces or a similar, that 4 or 5 millimeter thickness is, I think, ideal. So you can just put that up on your curtain rod, or if you already have a dowel or the piece of wood that you will be using, just put it on that, do a few knots, just practice a little bit with those before you start cutting your cords or even ordering your cords and then cutting them and working on the knots with those cords. So it's the experience, do I have at least some experience to work with? Then it's the type of the project. Again, my recommendation is rather do something more boho than something that's very geometrical and requires that symmetry. And then the third one is think about the time commitment and mentally prepare yourself that it is going to take you many, many hours to complete a project like that. And once you've considered all of those things, you prepared yourself, then have fun. Again, I think macrame is a great hobby to have, and I definitely want to encourage you to try more projects, try new things. I receive so many comments from people that say that they followed the tutorials, recreated the pieces. I get pictures from you guys and they're amazing. Many of you do your own kind of versions or spins on the different projects, and I just love seeing that. So I know that you can definitely work your way to those more advanced projects. And I think that will be it from me for this video. I hope the things I've mentioned were helpful and that now you know a little bit more as a beginner whether you should dive into that more advanced project or not. And with that, I am signing off and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.